7. We're going to be the entire chapter, verses 1 through 27. 1 through 27. And this is a continuation of the previous teaching on adultery. And so the previous two chapters have both had kind of extended discussions about this issue of adultery and sexual sin. And this is the third of those. The first one was chapter 5, verses 1 through 23, the majority of that chapter. And then in the last chapter, about 15 verses, chapter 6, verses 20 through 35. You know, it's been said that repetition is the mother of learning. And if that's true, then this is the third iteration of this. You know, one time it's important, two times it's like, hey man, you really need to wake up. 3 is like, okay, I got it already, right? Here it is again. And so it's worth repeating a third time. This must be very important, and we'll talk some more about that. I'm going to read the text, and then we'll go through with some verse-by-verse commentary. Proverbs 7, verse 1. My son, keep my words and treasure my commandments within you. Keep my commandments and live, and my law as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers and write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend, in order to keep you from the strange woman and from the foreign woman who flatters with her words. Verse 6, for at the window of my house I looked through the lattice, and I saw among the simple and discerned among the sons a young man lacking a heart of wisdom. Passing through the street near her corner, he strides along the way to her house, in the twilight, in the evening of the day, in the middle of the night, in the thick of darkness. And behold, a woman comes to meet him, dressed as a harlot, cunning of heart. She is boisterous and rebellious. Her feet do not dwell at home. Stepping in the streets, stepping in the squares, and nearly every corner she lies in wait. So she seizes him and kisses him. With a brazen face she says to him, the sacrifices of peace offerings are with me. Today I've paid my vows. Therefore I've come out to meet you, to seek your face earnestly, and I have found you. I've spread my couch with coverings, with colored linens of Egypt. I've sprinkled my bed with myrrh and aloes and cinnamon. Come, let us drink our fill as lovers until morning. Let us delight ourselves with the pleasures of love. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a faraway journey. He has taken a bag of silver in his hand. On the day of the full moon, he will come home. With her abundant persuasions, she entices him. With her flattering lips, she drives him to herself. He suddenly follows her, as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as one in fetters to the discipline of an ignorant fool, until an arrow pierces through his liver, and as a bird hastens to the snare, so he does not know that it will cost him his soul. So now, my sons, listen to me and pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart go astray into her ways. Do not wander into her pathways, for many are slain whom she has cast down, and numerous are those killed by her. The ways of Sheol are in her house, descending to the chambers of death. So, again, it's probably not a mystery as to what's being talking about here, but I want us to jump into it, and we'll kind of walk verse by verse through this. As mentioned, this is the third and really the final iteration of this warning in the book of Proverbs. It'll come up a handful of times, just in a handful of verses, but in a prolonged, extended fashion. This is the actually the longest one of the three. And so we'll start off verse 1. My son, keep my commandments, keep my words and treasure my commandments within you. Keep my commandments and live. So this is the fifth time that he's said something along these lines. So chapter 2, verse 1, chapter 3, verse 11, 4, 6:20. And so the idea here is that he's telling them what is he to do with these commandments. What does he say, verse 1? My son, do what with these words? Keep them. Yeah. Keep them, treasure it, keep my commandments and live. Okay. So this is not something that he's needing to go and get. It's something he already has. All right. He knows. It's kind of like if you've got kids, sometimes your kids do stuff, and the response that comes is, you knew what you were supposed to do, right? You weren't ignorant about this, right? You knew what you were supposed to do, and that's what's going on here. He's telling the son again, do what you know to do. This is not a matter of education as much as it is a matter of diligence, and so he is not naive. He already possesses these things. He already knows better, okay? And again, it's just this constant refrain. Pay attention, listen up. And he's going to say it again here towards the end of the chapter, as we've already read. Notice in the second half of verse 2, keep my commandments. And what is the result of keeping the commandments? Living, yeah. And of course, that's going to be contrasted with, at the end, here verses 20 through 27, things like slaughter and death. We've talked about this, previously. The wages of sin is death. Romans 3:23, right? Verse 6:23. The wages of sin is death, and that there is. Grant asked me about the exception to this in was it 1 John, I believe. He talks about there's a sin that doesn't lead to death, and the reason he's having to mention that is because it's in some ways an exception to the rule, but he's talking about physical death in that sense. But here, this idea is that the commandments, they give life, right? They're beautiful, they're wonderful, they're great. One of the things I would just commend to you is that that you learn to love what is truly lovely, that you love what is true and right and good and beautiful. Beauty is it's been said beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And maybe that's true with women or something like that. But generally, beauty is something that's objective, not subjective. I'm going to say that again. According to the scriptures, beauty is something that is objective. So what is true, what is right, what is holy, all of that stuff is good. What is ugly? What's despicable and putrid and nasty? Sin and death and hell and all of that stuff, okay? And so aligning our affections with truth is a really important thing. And he'll talk about that a little bit later, so we'll get into that. So live at the end of verse 2, contrasted with slaughter and death. Verse 2, the second half of verse 2, he talks about the apple of your eye. It's a Hebraism that isn't easily translated. It means something like the little part, the little man in your eye. And there's some debate about exactly what that means. But the apple of your eye is probably a pretty good translation into English. He says, "And my law, keep my law as the apple of your eye." Meaning that this is something that is to be internalized. It's something to be treasured and something that's to be inside of you. Not something that you just see from a distance, but you should not just see it, but you should obey it, understand it, and you should treasure it. You remember some of this language before, in chapter 4, verse 8, chapter 2, verse 4. He talks about, go get wisdom, get it, even more than silver, right? Treasure it, make it a big deal, internalize it. It needs to be something that you get in you, because it's gonna guard you. The benefits are worth the cost. I'm always reminded when we talk about this Jesus parable of he's talking about the kingdom. He's talking about the gospel of the kingdom, and he says that it's like a treasure hidden in a field. It's the pearl of great price, right? It's this treasure that's hidden in a field that when a man finds it, what does he do? He sells everything so that he can afford to buy the field that the treasure's in, because the treasure's worth more than the cost of everything that he has, right? You see that it's a little bit of a complicated transaction, but the idea, right? What I've got, I'm going to give everything I've got to get something that I couldn't otherwise buy. So what I'm giving up is everything. It literally is everything. And yet what I'm getting is far more valuable than the thing that I gave up, right? We would all make that transaction any day. Like if somebody said to you, okay, if you take all of your savings and empty it out, but you can multiply that by 10 to go get this thing, right? We would all do that, right? If it was a guaranteed kind of thing. And that's what Jesus is kind of getting at with the gospel of the kingdom, is it'll cost you everything. This is like Luke 9, for instance, the irony of the gospel. This idea of irony, that there's one thing that's expected, but it's actually something else, is all throughout the scriptures. I would suggest to you that it's one of the most pervasive literary devices in the Bible. That everything that you think naturally, the natural man, is upside down. That it's exactly the opposite of what you think. If you want to save your life, what does Jesus say? You want to save your life, man, you ought to keep on to it. Don't take risks. Don't do anything nutso, right? You need to be protection. You want to save your life, right? And what does Jesus say? Lose it. Give it away. Give it away. This situation is kind of like that. These commandments, this wisdom is worth everything. The world says, here's this shiny thing out here, right? Oh, it's great. Look at this, And he's saying, you need to pay attention to what I'm telling you. You need to remember what I'm telling you here. Get it in you. Get it. Let me say it a different way. Get it settled. Okay? In the time of trial, that's not the time to be making decisions. Right? Don't go to the grocery store hungry. Good catch there. Don't decide whether or not you're going to buy ice cream at the ice cream aisle, right? Don't go down the cookie aisle deciding whether, when you're on a diet or something like that, right? That's not the time to decide. Get this already settled in your head before you ever show up, okay? And of course here it's talking about sexual sin and adultery. Get this settled in your mind. Let it be the apple of your eye. Let it be that important and be a big deal. Notice verse 3, this idea of binding. Bind them on your fingers. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Two ways of saying kind of the same thing, but with a different nuance. This is something internal, so, get it written on your heart, right? It's the thing that, your heart beats for, that you love, that you care about. It's about directing your affections, choosing what to love, choosing what to give your heart to, and binding them on your fingers. The idea of being bound on your fingers, tie it on there, get it attached to you. This is the same thing. We talked about this before, chapter 3, verse 3, chapter 6, verse 21. This goes all the way back to Deuteronomy 6. We talked about this before. When God tells the Israelites to love him, and one of the ways that they love him with all their heart, mind, and soul, and strength, and all that kind of stuff, is that they bind the commandments on their foreheads and on their wrists. It's the same imagery. And the Pharisees literally obeyed this. They took boxes called phylacteries, and they make little bracelets and headbands, and they wore them around like they were the hardcore literalists of our society. There's an interesting lesson there that I'm not going to get sidetracked into today, but that's they wanted to obey that in the most literal way. Of course, they abandoned the actual commandment, which is a whole other problem. What is he saying here, though? Let this be constantly on your mind and about your business, what your hands do, right? The work that you do. These commands ought to just be commonplace, right? Again, let me say this way. The immature man waits until the moment of decision to make the decision. The mature man decides what's important ahead of time and reasons in his mind, decides what he's going to do and what he's not going to do. He has these principles laid out. He's already thought through this. He knows where he's going and where he's not going to go, all this kind of stuff. He lives life on purpose. And so this idea of binding these commandments, treasuring them in your heart, writing them on the tablet of your heart, this is something that requires effort, right? It doesn't just happen. I know guys who think that life should just be intuitive, right? They for some reason have bought into this lie that they are the barometer of truth and good and right and all this kind of stuff. And I get it, because by nature that's how I am, right? My wife will say sometimes, "Why do you think that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I just do." And she's like, "But that's dumb." I'm like, "Thank you, sweetie. I appreciate that." Okay, let me think through this a little bit. All right, let me get past the smack that you just laid down and not want to choke you. Okay, all right, you're right. This idea that there are guys that just fly by the seat of their pants all the time, right? All the time they just do this, and there have been guys who have actually been really successful doing that, right? Their intuition is being good, maybe at business or something like that. And that leads to confirmation bias. You know what confirmation bias is? When you're right about one thing and you think that you're right about all things because you were right about this one thing. It happens all the time in business. I know some of us at the table have talked about this with people, right? This idea that some guy, or he was right about this thing and he made a lot of money, and so now he thinks he's just right about everything. Right? It turns him into a jackass too, but that's a whole other issue. But like these guys, they just live life by the seat of their pants, and every now and then, that squirrel finds an acorn, and here we go. Here, again, this is in the context specifically of adultery. Bind the law on your heart. Get it in your head. Write it on the tablet of your heart. And that means that you're going to something outside of yourself. The commandments are outside, and you want to get them inside. You want to eat them. You want to digest them. The early church, the Greek fathers on the eastern side, talked about mastication. I'm going to be very articulate how I say that word. Right, the idea that they chewed like a ruminant animal would chew the cud. Okay, that you would take the commandments and you would say, "Yes, I want that," and you would eat it. And then what would you do? Well, as an animal chews the cud, they bring it back up again and they chew it again. And they said that's what we are to do with the scriptures. We're to chew on those things and chew on them again. And we ingest them and we say, yes, that's good. Oh, give me some more, right? And they go eat some more, but then they also chew what they've already eaten and they incorporate them all together, right? And you start getting these different pieces of the puzzle and you start putting it all together, and then life starts making sense. This is what it means to write these commandments on the tablet of your heart. Love it. Eat it up. Get after it. Right? But it requires a reorientation sometimes. I'll just tell you, me personally, this is not my notes. I don't know why I'm even going down this path, but I was not raised, we didn't read. Okay? I could read, but I did well in school, but I didn't read at all. Ever. Okay? I paid attention in class enough that I'm an auditory learner. So I could literally go to sleep. I could hear what she was saying and I could regurgitate it on the test. Okay. I fell asleep in biology and made my teacher very mad because I made an A on the final because I could hear his voice. He just had an annoying voice. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. What I'm telling you is that I had to learn to read. I had to learn to study. I'm an old country boy. I work on cars, and we farmed, and had cows and horses, and that kind of stuff. It was a complete reorientation, books and things like that for me. Some people, that's their thing, books and stuff like that, and they need the practical application of that. And they need to go out and skin a deer or something. That's a whole other side of things. But for me, it was this reorientation. If I'm going to get these commandments in me, I got to know what they are. I got to get this book in me, and I got to read it again and 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 again. And I would commend to you daily, monthly, weekly, yearly Bible reading. Read this book. The times that I grow the most are when I'm systematically reading through the scriptures on a yearly basis. Right? What happens is people want to do what we're doing right now and go verse by verse, which is right and good and all that kind of stuff. But you need the big picture narrative of what God's doing and what's going on. Talking about genres of scripture and noun conjugations and all this nonsense. I hated all that stuff. But what I realize is that there's gold in that mine. I have to learn to use the tools. And so I dig. And I'm digging, right? I'm going to write these things on the tablet of my heart. And for me to do that, I have to know what the commandments are. right? You can't love of God that you don't know. So with all that said, get off that soapbox for a little bit. That may mean that you have to learn some new skills is all I'm trying to say to you. Learn some skills, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. You can do that, I promise you. Every single one of you can do that. And many of you, I know, are doing that. So he says, write them on the tablet of your heart. This is all verse 3. Say to wisdom, you're my sister. Now, that's a weird thing to say. You're my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend. So wisdom and understanding are being equivocated on there. I mean, the same thing, not two different things necessarily. And this idea of intimate friend or lover and you're my sister. In the ancient Near East, the idea of sister is not talking about a sibling, but it's a term. It seems odd to us, and I guess it probably is in some ways, but Song of Solomon uses this same verbiage in Song of Solomon 4:9. And it's the idea of a really kind of a lover, of an intimate relationship. And so he's saying, he's personifying wisdom as a woman and says, make her your lover. You get the imagery here? Wisdom, you ought to make love to wisdom. Right? That's what he's saying, right? Get her inside of you, right? It's kind of a little bit of reversal of terms with the man on this. In this, there's a lot kind of built into this verse. Call her your intimate friend. And the purpose of that, verse 5, what's the purpose? In order to keep you from the strange woman. So, court, seduce wisdom so that you don't get seduced by this other woman. You get that? You see what's going on there? So he's using this imagery against the foreign woman. He's saying, get wisdom, and she will be your lover. Notice, again, the strange woman, the foreign woman. He talked about this in chapter 5, verse 3, chapter 6, verse 24. It's the same language. And again, we're going to pick this up in a minute, but notice what she does. What does she do at the end of verse 5? The foreign woman who, what?
Flatters with her words.
Flatters with her words. Okay, we're going to pick that up. I'm going to leave it there for now. We'll pick it back up in a minute. Verse 6. 4, he says, the window of my house, I looked out through the lattice. This, what he's doing here, he's telling a story, okay? He's going to tell a story about a young man that is going to get entrapped, okay? And so he says, hey, I was hanging out on top of the house. I looked through the lattice, and who does he see? Who does he perceive in verse 7? How does he describe the guy? Simple. Now, I'm familiar with the great song by the greatest American rock band, Led Zeppelin, Simple Man. It's a great song. Love it. Okay. Don't be simple. Okay. Regardless of what they say. Right. What in the Bible? Who is the simple? Who are the simple in the Bible? In particularly in Proverbs, as contrasted with the wise. Okay. Some things are complex and they're not straightforward. What guys who are producers want to do a lot of times, okay, I'm speaking, this is me. A guy who works off of intuition and then wants to oversimplify things so that he can get on with the work and turn the crank as soon as hard, be a downhill runner and get it done as fast as possible. Okay, that's being overly simplistic, and it'll get you killed. It'll literally get you killed out in the oil field because you won't see that there are dangers and things like that when you're dealing with torque that's 60,000 foot-pounds or something like that, or pressures that are 3,000 psi that will cut you in two. Right? There's that kind of stuff, heat and pressure and all that kind of stuff. But in this situation, the danger is losing your life to the adulterous woman. The simple guy, what does he do? He's just he's just walking along doing his thing. We're being guys, right? He's immature. He says, the simple guy says, it's not a big deal. I ain't worried about that. He's full of bluster and braggadocious. He's simple. It's another way of saying he's stupid. He's an idiot. He's a moron. Okay? Simple. He's dull. Not sharp. He's dull. He's immature. He doesn't see anything wrong with porn. with flirting or even adultery. It's natural, he says. Man's not meant to be monogamous. Well, he's stupid. The immediate context here, verse 7 through 9, is that this guy is strolling along through the city. He's walking through the city. And I was reading a commentator on this, and he was trying to make the case that the guy wasn't looking for trouble. I think he's wrong about that, and I'll tell you why. The idea like he's just a fly that gets caught in a web, oh, I was just flying around, and oh no, I'm stuck in a web. No, that's like he's unsuspecting. I don't think that's the case, and the reason I don't think that is because verse 8, it says, passing through the street corner, what's it say?
Near her house.
Near her corner. Yeah. Passing through the street near her corner. So maybe he doesn't know it's her corner. Really? Right? Don't be naive. Right? We all know where those places are. We know how that is. He was near her corner. Okay, verse 8. He strides along the way to her house in the twilight, in the evening of the day, in the middle of the night, in the thick darkness. So he's out at a time he shouldn't be out, in a place he shouldn't be, most likely. Okay, I don't think he's a fly caught in a web. I think he's actively out, and he may tell himself, "Oh, I'm just out for a walk."
I smoked cinnamon and I just...
You smoke cinnamon? Is that what you said?
No, verse 17.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Cinnamon and myrrh and all
Yeah. Okay. We'll get to that. Yeah. Smelled like cinnamon rolls. That's so. Yeah. Yeah. I think the obvious lesson here is right. You don't be dull. Don't be stupid. Right. Don't be naive. And also guard your heart. Think about this. Why is he out there? It's not just is he dull? Yes, he's dull. But he doesn't have to be dull. He chooses to be dull. He chooses to be simple. He chooses to be dumb. And the way he got there was by not directing his heart. Not choosing to love what's lovely. Instead, he says, I just followed my heart. You're a moron, okay? Choose what you desire carefully. You will find what you're looking for. 100% of the time. You will find what you're looking for. Okay? It's the idea that maybe I've known this to actually be the case. Guys go travel, they go walking around town or get in the car, and they just find themselves at the titty bar. Yeah. They just found themselves at, wherever. No. You're not just wandering around town. You find yourself in the place that your heart intended you to go. So verse 10. And surprise, behold. That's what it says. Behold, a woman comes to meet him, dressed as a harlot, cunning of heart. So guess who is on the street corner? Yeah, a woman, in this case, she's not technically a prostitute, but yes, that's the idea there, right? It's kind of like going to, the chicken place, and guess what? They have chicken, It's like, I went to the red light district, and they had...
Is that Dolly Parton?
They had wayward women there. I didn't know how I got there. It just happened. What seems to be clear to me, though, is that... Verse 10, she is cunning of heart. She is calculated in what she's doing. She's cunning of heart. Anybody have a different translation there at the end of verse 10? Wily. Crafty intent. Yeah, all those I think make the point, right? Those are good translations. Crafty, wily. So verse 11, what is her demeanor?
Obnoxious.
Yeah. Loud and defiant.
Let me clarify. That wasn't the translation.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what that alludes
to. You sound like you have some experience here. She's obnoxious. Yeah. She's boisterous. She's loud. Okay, she's not mousy. She is aggressive. Her feet don't dwell at home. She's out on the prowl. And I mean that in the most literal sense. She is out on the prowl. She is rebellious. She's loud and obnoxious. The wise man would do well to realize that the wayward wife or this adulterous woman, she is aggressive. Again, I've mentioned this before. Men who've committed adultery routinely will tell you that one of the things that is impressive to the men who fall prey is that she pursues them. She pursues them. She's out to get you, right? But she won't tell you she's out to get you. She'll say things like verse 14, which we'll get to in a minute. Let's go to verse 12 first. Stepping in the streets, stepping in the squares, near every corner she lies awake. So she's everywhere. She's seemingly omnipresent for the guy who is dull. I just can't get away from her, man. Yeah. She seizes him and kisses him. Again, see how she's aggressive, right? She is the one who's taking initiative. She seizes him and kisses him, and with a brazen face says to him, hey, I've taken care of business, right? The sacrifice of peace offerings with me. Today I've paid my vows. Therefore, I've come out to meet you, and I've been looking for you. Verse 15, I've been looking for you. I've been earnestly seeking your face, and I've found you. Right? She makes you somehow feel special and sought after. Right? Is she looking for you? No. She's a spider looking for a fly. Right? She is a lion looking for prey. Right? She is someone who has street smarts, who is looking for someone who is naive. And what does he do? Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. All right. Verse 15. Therefore, I've come out to meet you. I see your face earnestly. I found you. Verse 16. I've spread my couch with coverings, with colored linens of Egypt. To this day, Egyptian cotton is a thing. Okay. Right. And what she's saying, hey, buddy, I'm ready for you. I've been looking for you, and I'm ready for you. I got my bed ready for us. That's what verse 17 says. I've sprinkled my bed with myrrh and aloes and cinnamon. Yeah, boy, it smells good in there. And you can imagine in the ancient Near Eastern world where people don't bathe and they don't have deodorant and how much people stink. I mean, it's, people are nasty. What's she saying? Man, this is great. It smells good in here. Smells good, feels good, is good. All right, let's go. Come, let's get it on. Verse 18, that's what she says. She's up front about her intentions. She is not subtle, right? She just says, and if we weren't recording this, I'd say some other things, okay? But you can imagine, right? So, she's brazen. It says that about her face earlier. She has a brazen face in verse 13. So verse 18, she says, come, let us drink our fill as lovers till the morning. Let's get it on all night, baby. What you got? Let's pop you some blue pills and come on, I mean, let's go. Verse 19, don't worry. My husband's not here. There's no consequences to this. Don't worry about the downside here. Don't concern yourself. There's nothing to worry about. She attempts to remove any excuses or concerns about getting caught. So verses 19 to 20. My husband's gone. Verse 21. Her abundant persuasion, she entices him. With her flattering lips, she drives him to herself. That flattery, there it is again. We talked about it in verse 5. Here it comes up again. It was mentioned previously in another place where he says that her lips are smooth like oil. They drip honey. We've talked about this, where flattery is a killer. The most attractive thing usually about the wayward woman is not her outward beauty, but it's how she makes him feel. It's a manipulation technique. Oh, you're so strong. You must be working out. Oh, I need a real man. You look like the kind of. I'm tired of these young guys. I'm ready for a guy with some seasoning. Oh, I like that your hair's thinner. Whatever stupid crap, right? She comes up with.
Sounds
right?
like you have some experience.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, I don't, but it's like these. You're trying to trap me, man. Flattering lips right? Flattering lips, whatever, they will say the most crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. I don't know how to say it any more strongly. Don't believe anybody that tells you good stuff about yourself. Ryan, I think it was you a couple weeks ago. The Bible doesn't have a lot of good things to say about us, right? Has a lot of things to say about our need and our sinfulness and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't mean that, we're all POSs or something like that. God redeems that, and that's a good thing and all that kind of stuff. But this need for approval, this need for affirmation, right? She plays into that, right? And there's a hook in that bait. Right? It's a treble hook, right? I mean, there's no getting out of it once you bite it. It's a bad deal. Nothing to worry about. She gives abundant persuasions and enticement. She says all the right things. Verse 21, she is skilled at her killing. You say, killing? I didn't see any killing there. Well, keep reading verse 22. Suddenly he follows her, and as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as one in fetters to the discipline of an ignorant fool, until an arrow pierces through his liver, a bird hastens to the snare. He does not know what? It will cost him his soul. It will cost him everything. So, I got aloe and myrrh, and come here, give me a kiss. Oh, you so strong, you so funny. Batter, back and forth. That's a killer. It's a killer. The results are death. The trap is sprung. He is slaughtered. He's an unexpected idiot. Remember we said in the beginning here that the wise man thinks through these things ahead of time. He is surprised when this kills him. I know people who have done this and have said things like, this was the worst sex of my life. But it never felt like that on the front end. A lot of times it happens when a guy's out of town. A lot of times it happens when he's lonely, when he's away. And there's a trap. If you know that, get in front of it. Okay? Verse 24 is the refrain from verse 21. So my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to the words of my mouth. Don't let your heart go astray into her ways. Do not wander into her path. So again, he's just saying, wake up and don't go down here. Avoid the path. Stay away from her at all times and at all costs. The reason, verse 26 and 27, this has a predictable end. Everybody knows how this goes. 4, showing the connection or the reasoning behind this. There are many slain in whom she's cast down. Numerous are the paths. Those killed by her. Remember I said earlier, she's a killer. The ways of Sheol, that's the word for grave, are in her house, descending into the chambers of death. Chapter 5, verse 5 talked about this idea as well. So the reason to avoid her is that she has a very obvious and predictable pattern of behavior. She kills her victims. You would never in your right mind do that. So be in your right mind. Let me give what I hope will be some very practical application to this. We've talked about some of this stuff before. I won't repeat a whole lot of what we've already talked about. You can go back and listen to those lessons if you want in the last few weeks. Number one, I learned to identify traps. Identify traps. Aggressive women are traps. Let me say it stronger. Aggressive women are evil and are to be avoided. Loud women are to be avoided. Flattery is a killer. Don't believe it. Don't invite it. Have no tolerance for it. If you know something is poison, don't flirt with it. You moron. You don't flirt with a killer. You need to have an impenetrable defense. If you want to live a godly life, pursue, well, we'll get to that in a minute. You need to have this great defense. You need to have walls put up, ready, that people can't get through. Mean Joe Green ain't got nothing on you, right? Like this is bad stuff. Like you are willing to be rude if necessary to stay out of the snare of adultery. As a general rule, I'll just tell you, me personally, I do not touch women at all. At all. Maybe I go too far. I know guys that do the side hug and all that and whatever. I don't. Okay? Some of you guys that have known me for years, there's a very good chance that the only physical contact I've ever had with your wife is I might have shaken her hand. Maybe. And a lot of times I don't do that. I barely speak to them. That's on purpose. It's not because, am I an asshole a lot of times? Yes. But that's not why I'm doing that, right? Because of this passage, I'll just tell you, very early on in my 20s, I made a commitment, and I've kept this commitment by and large, with very few exceptions. I don't talk to women. I don't touch women. I don't have conversations with them. I don't ask them how their day's going because I don't care. I don't care how their day's going. And I know as a pastor, sometimes it feels like, well, Cody's yeah, I don't care. Go talk to your husband. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to know about what you're doing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. I will dodge a full frontal hug like O.J. Simpson, baby. I mean, I got some juke moves like you never seen, man. I see it coming, man. I turn around. I've literally turned around and walked away before. All right. There are a handful of exceptions. There's my mother and a couple of grandmas, kind of situation. But I don't do it. Am I overreacting to some of this? Maybe. But I don't see anywhere in Scripture where that's prohibited as an overreaction. I do see a whole heck of a lot of warnings in this passage about staying away. Okay? I don't flirt, and I would commend you not to. Don't flirt. What's flirting? You all know what it is. Don't be joking around with other women. Don't be making funnies, right? I don't smile. The smile is the entryway. I'm not joking. Recording this changes the things that I say. After this, I'll tell you the story, okay? I don't smile at waitresses. I don't smile at women, period. Why? Because that tells you, if you're single and you're looking for a woman, that tells them you're available. It's the smile. It's smiling. It's being nice. Anyway, I can't keep wanting to give this illustration. I can't give it. It's killing me. I'm mean mug. I'm the master of the mean mug, dude. I'm cold-hearted. I'm just, When I told you, Tony, that whole deal about she's a crazy bitch, like I channel that, and I'm like, I hate her. I hate her. I don't want to see her. Don't even look at me. And if that makes me a misogynist, then kiss my ass. I don't care, right? It's because I want to be faithful to my wife. It's because I don't want to blow my life up. It's because I love that girl. I married her because I liked her, right? And I know firsthand the absolute destruction that comes from a husband who won't stay home. And so with this, mean mug if you got to, and do it unapologetically. All right? Now, if you're looking for a wife, that's sure, smile. Okay. Yeah. You probably need to smile. So. Yeah. Yeah, brush your teeth and smile. Yeah. But if you got a wife, smile for her, right? But everybody else, again, am I overstating the case mildly to make the point? Yes. I think you all know that, right? Will I talk to women on some occasion? Yes. I'm not going to be, if you're there, I'm not going to be rude. I'll tell you what I won't do. If somebody, I've had this happen where somebody calls me innocent enough, and it may even be a legitimate concern. I've had women call me on the phone or text me or something like that. You know what I've done? Nothing. Well, I'll take that back. I ignore them and I call him. I ignore them and call him, and I say, "Hey, here's what's going on. Just want to let you know. Maybe you need have a conversation or whatever, right? And and it may all be innocent or whatever, but I'm just telling you, this whole avoidance thing, dude. When it says flee and run away, it means that, right? Don't linger. Don't give it room. It's not a big deal. It's a big freaking deal, man. I don't joke. I don't flirt. I don't smile. The smile is the open door to access. Learn to mean mug, do it unapologetically. The fact that the author felt the need to repeat this lesson on adultery for the third time underscores the gravity of the subject. Some sins disproportionately affect people's lives in a negative way. We've talked about this. Adultery, if it's not at the top of the list, it's pretty close to it. Okay? You may be able to, maybe murder, probably be the only other one that I know that is that. Anyway, Paul has a lot to say about this, and not just adultery specifically, but sexual sin in general. And so that's why I included like pornography and even fornication and stuff like that. 1 Corinthians 6 on through chapter 7 talks a lot about this, and he mirrors the command here to avoid. He says, "Flee sexual immorality, get away from it." It's the word porneia, which is the big house for all sexual sin. He repeats this command in 2 Timothy. He tells young Timothy as the pastor, he says, "Flee youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, and love with those who seek the Lord from a pure heart." And so that's what I would commend to you. The flip side of this, on one side, it's stay away, don't go there, all this other stuff. The flip side of it is surround yourself with godly men who are on mission and be a part of that brotherhood moving in that direction, right? How do you stay from the path of the wayward woman? Well, you stay on the path of the righteous, right? The best, again, we talk about having a defense, right? But the offense is that you want to be with the brothers, moving in a direction, on mission. And why in the world would I ever go over here? That's going to wreck my life, right? We got something good happening here. And so you choose who you spend time with. You choose your friends. Your friends don't choose you, right? You make a conscious decision who you're going to associate yourself with. And I would commend to you that you identify the things that matter. For us, I got my cup today, faith, family, and friends, forward movement, fitness, finance, freedom, and fun. If you embody those things, and those are in that order on purpose, first of all, if we're brothers in the faith, I have an interest in being friends, right? You'll notice the first of our handful of values there are all relational items, right? Those matter a lot to us as a family, and so that's who we're looking for. And so again, I would just say you pick your friends don't pick you. Pursue righteousness, faith, and love with those who call upon the Lord from a pure heart. What Paul tells Timothy. Flee youthful lusts and do this thing. I've mentioned this to you. If never in the history of humanity have we had access to porn in your pocket like we do today. Okay? I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this. I know it's an uncomfortable subject. It becomes less comfortable when you just kind of get it out in the light and deal with it. I don't know a red-blooded man out there who doesn't like to look at naked women, right? If you don't, then there's something else wrong, right? That's a whole other issue. But there's some good helps for that kind of stuff. There's software stuff you can put on there for accountability's sake and stuff like that. I'd commend that to you. Covenant Eyes, there are other ones out there. You can research that stuff if you want. If you want more input on that, let me know, and I can try to walk with you in that and help you with that. Joe Rigney's book, More Than a Battle. Rigney is not only a good Midlander, but he also is a first-rate Bible teacher, And the book's called More Than a Battle, and it's probably the best modern work on this issue of men and pornography. And it's a reaction against a book called Every Man's Battle. He says that it's more than a battle. He gets even into the theological side of things as well as very practical as well. And so I'd commend that to you. It's a good book. But the biggest piece of this is just moving forward with the brothers. Do the things you need to do. And if you need to make some adjustments, do what you need to do, right? But again, I would just say to you, the fact that the writer of Proverbs spends 3 chapters talking about this, it's the epitome of a topical sermon, right? And he deals with this. It's a big deal. And so there's some sins that disproportionately affect your life, and this is one of them. So you want to avoid that pothole at all costs if you can. Doesn't mean there's not, redemption or whatever, but, don't need to be redeemed. Stay out of the situation, right? That's the best medicine there is to keep from getting wounded. So, questions, comments? All right. Father, help us to be men of integrity with ordered affections. Make us love what's good and hate what's evil. Help us to love our wives and our children, to build families for the kingdom. Help us to walk with our brothers faithfully and before you. In Jesus' name, amen.